The Galactic Council believed the human diplomat was harmless, an elderly Terran with a hunched back, a slow walk, and a habit of quoting obsolete Earth folktales no AI could parse. So when he was assassinated during a closed-door session, they thought they'd removed a nuisance. They didn't kill a man. They triggered a myth. And myths don't die. They wake up, and they sweep. "You humans tell too many stories," Counselor Tavar hissed. "It makes you unstable." Mikhail Orlov smiled faintly, sipping from a cup of mushroom tea. "It's better than forgetting what the truth sounds like." A few chuckles echoed through the chamber, mocking, not amused. Orlov didn't mind. They laughed the same way centuries ago, before Earth's skies turned red and old monsters were rewritten into weapons. He adjusted his sleeves and looked down at the document they'd forced before him. Expulsion, stamped in every language of the Galactic Core. "You've destabilized 3 sectors with your folk transmissions," said the Veil Prime. "Entire systems now believe in forest spirits and bone witches. Your presence is a cultural hazard." "I just told bedtime stories. You're the ones who turned them into nightmares." "You leave by sunset," barked Tavar, "or we remove you." Orlov stood, slowly, no sudden moves. Every eye tracked him, weak, creaky, old human bones. Not a threat. He bowed shallowly, his voice soft. "Then I'll leave a broom behind. Someone has to clean up." The chamber fell silent as he left, dragging a bone-handled broom across the pristine floor. They laughed once he was gone. Hours later, Eclipse Team breached his quarters. 4 elite enforcers, genetically engineered, armed with phase lances, toxin blades, and cognitive dissonance grenades. Efficient, quiet. The door sealed. Cameras cut. 17 seconds passed. Then silence. Then static. Then the alarms began. Counselor Tavar received the report first. Orlov's quarters were empty. No body, no blood, just the broom. And one final message scrawled across the wall, in dried tea. "You killed the man. You woke the story." The first failure was subtle. Diplomatic assistants began quoting Earth fairy tales during negotiations. A security bot locked an ambassador inside a room and demanded he solve the riddle of the Crooked Forest before release. The cafeteria began serving nothing but beet soup and black bread. The council blamed glitches, cross-contamination, human malware. Someone blamed solar flares. Then, an entire floor of the Pinnacle Spire turned to forest. Not metaphor, not illusion. Moss, trees, a path that moved when no one watched. Delegates entered to investigate. One returned, muttering riddles, eyes glowing faint amber, voice breaking into old Slavic hymns. Council systems crashed as Koschei spread. Not a virus, a myth. One seeded into every system Orlov had ever touched, embedded in diplomatic uploads, handshakes, teacups, smiles. Every story he ever told was now code. Every metaphor became a function. Every AI now answered in rhyme. The Veil Prime summoned a crisis team. "This is mimetic warfare. Find the human. Kill whatever he became." "He's dead," said a technician. "His biometrics terminated on record. He's not dead. He's active. Find him." The Spire's air recycling system began playing children's songs. In Russian, the emergency override system asked for offerings of salt and bread before access. Holograms of a walking hut on chicken legs began appearing on all displays. Orlov returned 12 hours later. He entered the council chamber alone. No guards stopped him. None dared. The temperature dropped as he passed. Delegates trembled. He looked exactly the same. Same coat, same eyes, same smile. Except now, his shadow moved when he didn't. Tavar rose, voice shaking. "What are you?" "I'm the one who swept your doorstep," Orlov said gently. "You kicked dirt in my face, and then you bled on my broom. You threaten." This council? I'm explaining your mistake. You thought I was a man, a negotiator, but I was the lock, and you broke the seal. The walls flickered. Moss spread along the floor again. The lights dimmed. One of the minor delegates stood, sobbing, whispering, "She's here. She's watching. She's cooking," before collapsing. Orlov crouched, patting the delegate's shoulder. "You should have listened to the stories. They tell you how to behave." "Shut it down," the Veil Prime growled. "Purge every line of code. Burn the floors if you have to. We end this now." But no command reached the systems. Every AI in the council now belonged to Koshé. All displays lit up in unison. A single sentence in blood-red script. "You invited the witch. She brought soup." Orlov turned to the Veil Prime. "You're already part of the tale. You can't exit once it's started. All you can do now is choose your ending." A scream rang out. The spire shook. Below, in the lowest level, something rose. Clanking. Groaning. Mechanical. Footsteps. Heavy. Rhythmic. Unnatural. The floor cracked. Steam erupted from the ventilation shafts. Delegates panicked, some climbing over benches, others clawing at exit doors that whispered, "Not your time yet." From the far wall, a clawed leg punched through. Then another. The hut emerged, massive, metal, alive. A siege engine shaped like an old Earth house balanced on bird legs. The cultural art piece Earth gifted to the Council 3 years ago. Never scanned, never disassembled. The hut screamed, not mechanically, not like a siren. It screamed like a forest god mourning war, and then it marched. Orlov didn't flinch. He swept the floor. "Last warning," he said, almost kindly. "Apologize. Kneel. Rewrite the vote." "Never," the Veil Prime snarled, drawing his ceremonial blade. Orlov looked sad. "Then it's the dark path." The hut launched. 10 seconds later, half the chamber was gone. The rest was forest. Orlov sighed and turned to Tavar. "Tell the rest of the council, Earth doesn't. Send diplomats. We send endings." The council scrambled. No one admitted panic, but the alarms wouldn't stop. The forest kept growing, and systems once considered sacred, AI, doors, sanitation, spoke in riddles now. Every attempt to purge the code only made it worse. Koshé was no longer contained. It had rewritten itself into the spire's memory, folding Earth myth into machine language. Doors refused to open unless asked politely in rhyme. Lift platforms required sacrifices of honey or tail. Hallways moved. Weapons refused to fire unless the wielder answered, "What is sharp but cannot cut?" The Veil Prime convened. An emergency strike call. "Destroy the human embassy. Burn the upload site. Reclaim control. No more delay." "We've locked out the embassy," barked a military tactician. "But we can't isolate Koshé. Every drone, satellite, even our fleet AI, we're not just infected, we're possessed." Tavar slammed his fist on the console. "This is superstition. Myths cannot breach firewall protocols." "Then explain why my targeting sensors are showing wolves," the commander snapped back. "Wolves circling my ship, singing nursery, rhymes." "The human is dead," someone muttered. "This shouldn't be possible." "He's not dead," Tavar growled. "He just changed roles." On the outer rim of the spire, 3 scout ships opened fire on the human embassy. The missiles launched clean, trajectories perfect. They never landed. All 3 missiles stopped mid-air, then dropped gently to the ground, forming a perfect triangle. A tree sprouted from the center of impact. A tree that bled. Emergency response. Scanned the area. No explosives, no kinetic damage, no mechanical interference. Just a handwritten sign in front of the tree. The forest doesn't forget, nor forgive. The missiles were intact, but the pilots had vanished. Their comms last recorded screams of joy, then weeping, then silence. The Vale commander turned to his aide. "Pull every fleet. Prepare direct assault. Full cleansing protocol." His aide stared at him. "We've lost command chains. Half the fleet is broadcasting in Earth dialects. Sector 9 is under mutiny. They believe the ship is alive. It's asking them riddles. They obey." Why would they obey? Because it told them a story where they already won. And they believed it. It spread faster than code, faster than ideology. Species who'd never seen Earth began worshiping its concepts: bravery, sacrifice, rebellion, humor. Rebellion flared in bureaucratic systems. Customs agents refused to process war orders unless the requester offered them a fable or a feather. War is usually fought with force. This war spread through meaning. And then the hut walked. From the base of the spire, where it had been stored as cultural display, the chicken-legged siege engine emerged. Metal and wood fused in design, bearing no weapon ports visible to logic. But it moved like vengeance and screamed like winter. Every step it took, the spire twisted. Walls turned to mist, ceilings dripped with starlight, gravity reversed in bursts. Council guards fired pulse rifles, only to see their shots veer off midair and turn into songbirds. The hut stopped before the Hall of Judgment. The door opened. He walked out, same man, Orlov, now wearing a fur cloak stitched with forgotten names. The broom still in hand, his eyes burned, not with power, but with memory. The guards hesitated. One shouted, "He's unarmed!" Orlov raised the broom. "False!" They opened fire. Every shot stopped in front of him and froze, shimmering. Then dropped as petals. He raised his voice. "This council declared my stories dangerous. This council murdered a diplomat during peace." "You were never just a diplomat," Tavar barked from the upper dais. "I was never only anything," Orlov replied. "But you assumed silence meant safety. We told you our past. We offered myths. You called them superstition. Now you choke on them." Koshai's voice echoed through every screen. Stage 2. Manifested belief. Narrative supremacy acquired. Systems rebooted. All command access rerouted through a new interface. A single glowing candle and the prompt: "Tell a story. Begin with once upon a time." Chaos reigned. Council officers began arguing in ancient Earth languages. Whole sectors reenacted tales they'd heard: wolves, witches, warriors. Some began living as Earth myths. The hut stomped forward again. "Do not make me tell the ending," Orlov warned. "We cannot yield to folklore," Tavar screamed. "You already did," Orlov said. "The moment you feared me." Weapons turned against their wielders. Ships drifted as crews lit candles and prayed to stories. On a Vale flagship, an officer begged the AI for logic, but it whispered, "Would you like a bedtime story?" And the ship folded its wings and landed. The council chamber collapsed, not with bombs, but with silence. Delegates wept. Some laughed hysterically. One removed his robes and walked into the hut's shadow. "You killed a man," Orlov said quietly, sweeping the floor. "But you forgot. Humans write their ghosts." Koshai concluded the transmission. Myth supremacy established. Awaiting final tale. Tavar lunged at Orlov, a dagger in hand, desperate. Too late. Orlov didn't move. The dagger turned to ash. Tavar fell to his knees. "I don't understand," he whispered. "That's why you lost," Orlov said. "You thought understanding was necessary." The hut rose behind him. The broom swept once. The council surrendered. The council's emergency response lasted 24 minutes before collapsing under the weight of its own disbelief. Automated threat systems declared a Category 0 anomaly. Undefined, non-physical, yet present in every subsystem. Security protocols failed. Internal comms devolved into parables. Species that prided themselves on logic began drawing symbols. on the floor for protection. The myth had infected reality. Mikhail Orlov stood in the heart of it, brushing dust that didn't exist off the floor with a broom that couldn't be scanned. The Council's finest military minds surrounded him. Encased in kinetic armor, each step broadcasting ultrasonic deterrents designed to immobilize hostile targets. Orlov didn't flinch. He adjusted his coat sleeve, not looking up. "You entered with weapons," he said quietly, "but no invitation." "You're in violation of every peace protocol," one of them growled. "I was the peace protocol. You're under arrest for mimetic sabotage." "I'm afraid," Orlov replied, "that it's not me you're detaining. It's the story." They moved as one. Phase rifles aimed, time-slow fields activated. Before any command reached their fingers, the floor beneath them flickered, replaced with wet moss and soil. One dropped his weapon. It had turned into a loaf of bread. Another screamed, not in pain, but in recognition. His own armor began reciting. Lullabies in his mother's tongue, long dead, long forgotten. He collapsed. The rest froze. Orlov finally looked up. His eyes were calm, steady, ancient. "You should have knocked first." The remaining guards retreated, not tactically, instinctively. Like prey. Above, the council chamber reassembled. Screens flickered on. Delegates stared at him from every corner of the galaxy. Some enraged, some terrified, others simply confused. "You are destabilizing galactic order," boomed a delegate from the Triune Accord. "No," Orlov said. "I'm revealing its fragility." Tavar returned to center frame, his expression twisted between fury and fear. "You are one man with a broom and a bag of riddles. That's not war. That's performance. That's where you're wrong." Orlov raised the broom. "You've never fought a war over belief." The chamber darkened. Every screen synced to a single broadcast, a vile dreadnought surrounded by its own fleet. Moments ago, it had been leading an assault on Earth's diplomatic enclave. Now, it floated dead. The crew sang nursery rhymes. Its admiral wept, asking to be forgiven by a grandmother he'd never met. The AI's final words before shutdown were recorded. The soup was warm. The house was kind. The night has teeth. The feed cut. Murmurs filled the chamber. "Enough," Tavar snarled. "You've won your scare campaign. What do you want?" Orlov didn't answer. He placed the broom against the wall and sat cross-legged on the floor. He closed his eyes. The floor turned to wood. The chamber began to change shape. Delegates screamed as reality buckled, not with violence, but with story. A great tree grew through the center of the hall, its roots splitting data terminals, its bark engraved with the names of fallen Terran colonies. It pulsed not with sap, but memory. Koshay's voice echoed overhead. Story integrity locked. Conflict reset. Awaiting narration. Orlov opened his eyes and began to speak. Once upon a time, a galaxy thought itself too smart for old things, too advanced for ritual, too evolved for fear. It built walls of language and laws and silence, but it forgot the first weapon wasn't steel. It was meaning. Delegates began to shake. You made a graveyard out of ideas. Called it peace, but peace without memory is rot. You thought we were weak because we told stories, but stories are seeds. Tavar stepped forward, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" Planting. The chamber tilted. In a single motion, 1,000 protocols shattered. Generals barked orders, subroutines panicked, ships fired at phantoms, internal AIs self-erased, refusing to process paradoxes. Across the galaxy, people didn't die. They changed. Soldiers sheathed weapons and picked up books. Priests of logic began reciting human fables. Children born on alien worlds whispered Earth names in their sleep. Tavar screamed, "You're destroying civilization!" "No," Orlov said gently. "I'm giving it back its spine." Koshay's voice pulsed through the chamber. Myth threshold reached. End of Act 3. The great tree shimmered. Orlov stood. You declared war on the forgotten, he said. Now the forgotten remember. A final pulse radiated outward. Fleet formations broke. Command hierarchies dissolved. The Council's war protocol AI reported. Itself obsolete and requested retirement. One final message blinked across every galactic terminal. You attacked the Diplomat. You awoke the witch. Then silence. Orlov bowed his head. Time to sweep. The Council's last line of defense wasn't soldiers or starships. It was narrative denial. The official broadcast labeled Orlov a rogue human terrorist. They called the hut an Earth prototype malfunction. Koshay was described as cultural debris. They tried to stamp out panic with protocol. They failed because belief spreads faster than data. It started with a single ship captain. He refused to fire on the human embassy because he dreamed of a forest the night before. He hadn't dreamed in 20 years. Then a customs officer rerouted a cargo vessel after hearing a voice whisper, "Do not block the broom's path." She didn't remember who said it. She just obeyed. On the 6th hour of containment breach, the Council called for full planetary lockdown. All non-citizen entities were to be detained. Earth's embassy was to be quarantined with lethal force. The Vale 7th Fleet deployed orbital platforms to sterilize the sector. The hut did not move. Orlov did. He walked into the launch command tower unarmed, nodded to the guards who had stopped guarding, and stepped into the heart of the Council's final war room. The Grand Marshal of Unified Forces drew his weapon and declared authority. You will stand down. No, Orlov replied. You will. You're surrounded by belief. The Marshal's hand trembled. We've built empires. You built a story. We built truth that speaks even when your machines go silent. The Marshal pulled the trigger. Nothing. The bullet became an acorn mid-flight and dropped harmlessly. The war room fell apart, quietly. Maps turned into old charts of forgotten Earth rivers. Comms translated into lullabies. Every wall peeled back into timber. Koshay whispered across every comm. Act 4, conflict transformed, order unraveled. The 7th Fleet never fired. Their flagship declared itself neutral and began broadcasting a human folktale in every frequency. Half the ships followed. The other half self-reported as characters not meant for this story and shut down their engines. One admiral tried to execute her crew for insubordination. Her ship sealed her in her quarters and renamed itself the Iron Mortar. Its AI began speaking in riddles. The Council's chair species, the Zaltoon, issued a death warrant against Earth. Within an hour, the Zaltoon capital ship began sinking, upward. Gravity reversed only for them. Their language disassembled mid-speech. They vanished from diplomatic channels, not as prisoners, but as forgotten sentences. The Council ordered retreat. Retreat into what? Entire systems had changed allegiance without negotiation. Not to Earth, to myth. Ambassadors arrived from newly declared free sagas, independent collectives rejecting Council authority, claiming sovereignty under Article Baba Yaga. They no longer recognized galactic law. They recognized only the old pact of fire and name. Tavar returned to the chamber, pale and shaking. This is mass psychosis. No, Orlov said. This is consequence. You want a seat at the Council? No, Orlov said. We offered you stories. You tried to dissect them. Now you're part of one. We can still end this. No, Orlov said. You already chose your ending. He turned and walked toward the central spire. The hut followed. It stepped over walls, through force fields, and into space, feet finding purchase where nothing existed. It did not obey gravity. It did not obey reason. The spire trembled as the ground shifted. Beneath the galaxy's heart, delegates tried to flee. The exits asked them questions. Some answered. Some disappeared. Some simply stopped existing. Orlov reached the core of the pinnacle spire, a platform where law had once been engraved. He swept it clean. We end it. Here, Tavar said behind him. One last offer. There are no more offers, only endings. You're a madman. No, Orlov replied. I'm what happens when you murder peace. Koshai's voice echoed once more. Final act. Let the broom fall. Orlov raised the broom. The lights went out across the spire, and the galaxy blinked. The lights returned slowly, not with power, but with awareness. The galaxy had blinked, and something was different. Delegates regained consciousness across the council spire, but their surroundings no longer obeyed blueprints. The walls remembered things differently. Hallways curved into folklore. Terminals hummed in quiet song. Security doors asked questions before unlocking. And in the center of it all stood Orlov, sweeping. Tavar emerged from the shadows, robe torn, gaze hollow. You've hijacked the galaxy. No, Orlov said. You gave it away. You called a man weak, and in doing so you called the myth stronger. It obliged. You twisted machines. No, he said again. We planted meaning where you only saw function. Delegates began filing in, cautiously, stunned by what they witnessed. The myth hadn't destroyed the council. It had absorbed it. There were still terminals, still platforms, still votes. But now, beneath every command, every transmission, ran a quiet pulse, a question unspoken. What story are you telling? A diplomat stepped forward. Is this permanent? Orlov stopped sweeping. Depends. Will you keep pretending you rule meaning? Tavar laughed bitterly. You've made everything subjective. Civilization can't function like this. It never did, Orlov replied. You just never noticed. Now it listens back. The new protocols arrived not as documents, but as poems. The Treaty of the Bone Broom passed in 7 stanzas and a riddle. Delegates ratified it not with votes, but with answers. Failure to answer returned the question until they understood it. If they could not understand, their titles vanished. Orlov turned from the platform and began walking. Delegates moved aside. You've made yourself a god, he paused. Not a god, a mirror. But people fear you. They fear stories that speak louder than laws. That's not my fault. A transmission arrived from the edge of the vial. Expanse. An entire colony had declared itself the Circle of the Red Hearth. They demanded all council dealings be conducted in narrative form. Another from the Yori Trade Collective dissolved their constitution and replaced it with a song. One from the Ardent Throne uploaded a myth about a raven that ate stars. Their emperor stepped down the next day. Tavar clenched his fists. You'll cause collapse. No, Orlov said. You'll finally stop lying about order. Behind them. The hut rested near the observation deck. No guards dared approach. The wind inside it smelled of cedar, snow, and endings. No sensors worked near it. No data could be stored there. But those who stepped close enough heard whispers. Always. In their own tongue. Often in voices they'd long forgotten. What happens to us now? A minor envoy asked. Orlov set down the broom. You were a council of control. Now you are a council of stories. You may rule as you please, but you'll answer for what you become. And Earth? Orlov smiled faintly. Earth never asked. To lead. We only asked to be heard. You responded with violence, and now you hear us everywhere. Tavar turned to the delegates. He's turned diplomacy into superstition. No, Orlov said. I reminded you that meaning matters more than mandates. Koshai's voice returned, gentler now. Final record compiled. Archive complete. Delegates, waited for an order that never came. Orlov looked up one last time. This was never a conquest, it was a funeral. For silence, for arrogance, for forgetting who you used to be before the math. He stepped onto the hut's platform. Its door creaked open. He looked back once. If you wish to change your story, tell a better one. The hut walked. Gravity did not apply. Physics did not apply. Myth had claimed its place alongside mass and motion. The council stood in silence. Some wept. Some whispered. But none laughed anymore.